Rayman Legends is a 2D platformer released in 2013 by Ubisoft. The game is joyful and simplistic, aimed for young people to play and enjoy with their friends or their family, exploring the colorful levels, taking down epic boss fights while smacking each other along the way. At its core, this is what Rayman Legends is all about. Now take everything I just said and throw it out of your window. As a speedrunner, Rayman Legends is about maximizing speed through invasions, speedrunning difficult individual levels with walking wide way-ups, girth wide way-ups, and using your brain to find strategies like this, or like this. I am now going to take a moment to talk about TAS. A TAS, or a tool-assisted speedrun, is a run crafted to be perfect with the best strategies and execution. Depending on the game, the TAS tools are different, but for Rayman Legends, the TAS tools are sadly very limited. There is a public Yuzu fork which allows people to TAS Rayman Legends on a Switch emulator, and that one works as an input playback, using the TAS editor tool, where you can tell it to jump on frame X, attack on frame Y, and hold a specific angle down to the thousandths of a degree on frame Z. You put all of the instructions in a text file, user reads it, and plays it back in the game. But that's enough about TAS. Have you ever heard of teleportation? Okay, so what's happening? What you're currently seeing is known as a co-op zip. To perform one, you need to have two players, and the player who will be zipping the other has to be Globox. Globox has to turn left, turn right, then look up, while the other player has to jump above the Globox. But beware, if you just do that and nothing else, the zipped character will return to Globox after a bit of time. If the zipped character kicks and jumps while being zipped, he will not get returned to Globox. If during the kick and jump, the zipped character was holding right, he will conserve an excellent amount of speed. If the Globox doing the zip kicks at any point during the co-op zip, said zip will end and the Globox being zipped will be released out of the zip, meaning that he cannot be returned to Globox during the zip, which is especially useful with ground pound zips, or GP zips for short. During a GP zip, the Globox doing the zip can kick to release the other Globox at the frame he wants. The zipped character will be zipped in the direction that the Globox is looking in, so that also counts diagonals. If Globox is on a slope and zips player 2 will be zipped in the direction of the slope. Oh, did I mention you can go through walls? Players have been using crazy co-op zip techniques in Dojo Speed, namely Runuru, Baji, Phosphor, Einar, myself, but most importantly, Petit Fleur. I want to take a moment to give a big shout out to him for making this video possible and allowing me to use the clips before he uploads them. I will link his channel in the description, so make sure to check him out after this video. After Dojo rooms, co-op zips started to be utilized in invasions, as the simple goal of reaching the finish as fast as possible while having the possibility to teleport through walls transformed the way to play invasions from how can I optimize the intended path to the finish to how do I take the shortest possible line from the start to the finish. A few months ago, I uploaded this video in which I unveiled some of the first co-op TAS runs in invasions, because if you can TAS an invasion with one player, why not four? And if you have never seen a co-op invasion run before, let me show you an example from that video. If we take the Invasion 4-3 Mansion of the Deep, this is what a good solo run looks like. Completing the first room in about 12.5 seconds, entering the door to the second room, completing the second room in about 4.6 seconds, entering the door to the third room, and completing that one in about 5.6 seconds, for a 22-second time. In a co-op TAS run, you completely ignore the intended route and co-op zip through the right wall, co-op zip through another platform to save a few hundredths of a second, co-op zip on this upward slope to get zipped diagonally up right, and finish the room in about 6 seconds and a half. In the second room, you immediately start with a co-op zip through the first wall, co-op zip again through the next wall, co-op zip again through the wall that connects room 2 and 3, skipping the door that you normally take, and do another diagonal co-op zip angled up left to phase through this wall and finish in 13.44 seconds. And that's one example. I could also tell you about 1-4, where you co-op zip to land on the roof of the level, or even 1-5, where you co-op zip to land on the roof of the level. But that's old. That was in August 2025. Nobody cares anymore. That's why in this video, I'll be showing 5 new co-op TAS runs, explaining the strat, hardships, lucky moments, improvements, and failed ideas. For invasions with rooms, I will first play room 1 at full speed, then explain every single part of it while playing it back in slow motion, and repeating this process for every room. But for open invasions without rooms, I will play the whole run directly, then play it back while explaining. Without further ado, let's take a look at the first run, 2-2 Winds of Strange. The run starts with a simple co-op zip by red Globox, and the purple Globox jumps one frame before the others and back kicks to the left to land as early as possible to set up another co-op zip, diagonal this time, since the ground there is slightly angled upwards. The two other Globox kick in the air to go through the wall while being zipped diagonally upright, and they jump to the left at the peak of their height to ground pound under the bumper at 1.71 seconds, whereas the solo TAS is at 2.41 seconds, meaning we saved 7/10 of a second in the first 2 seconds. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because the most precise part of this run is coming up right now, and it is this co-op zip. To understand why it was so annoying, I have to give you a small lesson about zips. No matter your height, when you start getting zipped, you get pulled down more the longer you stay in the zip. If you jump early, you keep most of the height, but you keep no speed. To keep all the horizontal speed after the jump, you need to wait a lot, so you have no choice but to endure getting pulled down. This is quite a problem in our case, because of this electric bulb which is in the way. The solution, however, is not rocket science. Since we determined that you get pulled down by the co-op zip, then that's right, we are once again relying on the uneven ground, giving us the possibility to slightly angle the Globox with zips, which means that the other Globox gets zipped at a higher angle and after getting pulled down, barely avoids the electric ball and jumps. It is not over though. You may be wondering why Globox just jumped through the ceiling, but the answer is that the hitbox is just completely inaccurate and looks something like this. But he conveniently used that hitbox to his advantage, because he bonked the ceiling at the end of his jump, making him fall down faster and barely landing at the end of the first parachute. After ground pounding the bumper, Globox does a back kick to revive the two Globox that have been dead for a few seconds, and he immediately zips them to the right. You may now be wondering why the purple Globox kicked in the air to fall down, instead of helping the red one with a co-op zip to the last bumper. But if purple Globox didn't do that, the level will simply restart. Why? Because the grey Globox is now off screen after zipping the two Globox to the right, and the red Globox is actually also off screen according to the game, because it's so high up in the camera. If purple Globox copied red Globox inputs, every single player would be off screen or dead, and in that case, the game considers that no player is alive and that the level must restart, even though in this moment, 3 out of the 4 players are completely fine. So, purple Globox kicks in the air to stay below the very top of the camera and to keep one player alive and on the screen, while the red Globox does a walking wavy way up to the top left bumper like normal and completes the level in 10.83 seconds, even before the camera has the time to follow. I hope you now understand the complexity behind this TAS run. Even if you were already baffled after seeing it the first time, I want this explanation to make you reevaluate what you thought was possible in this game. And trust me, it does get crazy later. But let's take a chill pill and move on to a simpler level for now. Before showing you the TAS run, let me dissect the human world record, the duo run achieved by Petite Fleur and Phosphor. 4-4 infiltrated station invaded has been made much easier since co-op zips go through walls, effectively skipping the entire difficulty of the level, which needs you to kill every single enemy before progressing to the next room. The duo world record starts with a double jump and a small wall jump from naked Globox, who I will refer to as Pink Globox to avoid getting demonetized. He reaches the top platform as soon as possible to spin and set up a co-op zip. Grey Globox spin jumps and ground pounds above Pink Globox, performing a GP zip all the way until the end of the room, where he gets released at the first possible frame by Pink Globox kicking, and all he has to do is hold up to enter the door. Let's continue onto the second room. Pink Globox spins much earlier than Grey Globox, jumping before ground pounding to break the bone wall and reaching the floor. Pink Globox then immediately jumps while Grey Globox also reaches the floor, setting up a co-op zip as Pink Globox does a GP zip, and Grey Globox just has to kick at the correct frame to release his teammate, who just holds up to enter the door. Pink Globox kicked at the start of the room because of a particularity only 4-4 has. When you enter a room, you can start moving as soon as the timer starts running again, but this movement does not include just turning around. If you simply held left to turn around for the zip, it would start doing so only after the complete end of the walking animation, which takes about 0.4 seconds. In this case, Pink Globox did a walking kick to the right to then turn to the left for the co-op zip, because that's just the fastest strat. Grey Globox jumped and GP'd into the zip, Pink Globox kicked to release him once again, and that's room 3 done in 0.58 seconds. The fourth room starts with both players doing a double jump to GP on this platform. Grey Globox zips Pink Globox through the vine that normally moves out of the way only when you killed every single enemy, and he releases Pink Globox just in time before he goes past the second vine. The only thing left for him to do is to run up the vine and spin jump to the finish, with a final time of 6.53 seconds. Here is the first room but zoomed out. Do you remember what I said in the start of the video? With the ability to go through walls, the way to optimize an invasion run is to ask yourself, how do I take the shortest possible path from the start to the finish? The path taken by the world record looks like this, but I see a much shorter path to the door. Did you spot it? Wasn't it so obvious? Why did they go all the way around when they can take the shortest possible line? The run starts with a zip tower, so green Globox simply holds up to allow for red Globox to jump on top of him. Red Globox, after landing on top of green Globox while looking left, just turns to the right to set up a co-op zip for Luigi Globox, who does a walking wide way up to quickly jump off green Globox, positioning himself in the top right corner and kicking at just the right frame to get zipped by red Globox. If you remember, I said that the zipped Globox gets pulled down the longer he stays in the zip, but here you want the opposite, since you want to get zipped into the pipe. That's why green Globox jumps during the zip, and red Globox gains height. This is why Luigi Globox managed to be zipped into the pipe. The issue now is, how do we get out of the pipe? If you're out of bounds and you try to return inbounds from the top or the side, you will just die. But not from the bottom, as you cannot see because the camera never wanted us to get there so fast. When Luigi Globox jumps from the zip, he clips out of the pipe by exiting it from below. Luigi Globox just has to spin to the end and enter the door more than a second ahead of the human world record, and blue Globox was useless. The second room used the trick I talked about previously to allow green Globox to co-op zip much earlier thanks to the walking kick. Here, blue Globox jumped as soon as possible and turned to the right before doing a GP zip to reach the floor quickly, because now that he's facing right, he gains a frame for the next co-op zip he's preparing by only having to turn left, not right and left. Meanwhile, Luigi Globox waits a bit before doing a spin into a GP, and before touching the floor at the bottom, he gets zipped by blue Globox, who just has to release him with a kick at the correct time. Red Globox did nothing here. Room 3 is the least eventful one, as it is pretty much the same as the durable record I previously talked about, just a bit faster. Blue Globox has a walking kick as soon as possible to co-op zip as quickly as possible. Luigi does a GP zip, gets released at the correct frame, and enters the door. Green Globox and red Globox were not needed here. Room 4 starts the same way with a walking kick trick by red Globox, who zips Luigi Globox and green Globox. The latter jumps and ground pounds onto the platform to set up a zip, while Luigi Globox wall jumps and kicks twice in the air to get the height to get zipped. Green Globox releases Luigi Globox at the perfect frame to land the furthest up the last vine possible, and he just has to spin jump to the finish with a final time of 4.68 seconds. Blue Globox was useless here, and funnily enough, in every room, at least one player is not doing anything, so this run could have been achieved in trio instead of squad. Phosphor Infiltration Station was a pretty tame task in comparison to what's coming later in the video, and I think it's time to turn it up a notch with the next invasion, 5 3D Amazing Maze. Before showing you the task, we will take a look at the duo world record by Petit and myself. The run starts with both players spin jumping to the ring and entering the next room like usual. Green Globox walks forward and prepares to zip blue Globox, who kicks a lot of times to clip to the wall, and green Globox is now out of bounds on the left of the room, where he does a back kick to the wall to activate the lever that moves the saw blade. The rest of the run continues just like a solo run, with nothing to note until the very end, where instead of flying up and ground pounding to the finish like a normal run, blue Globox kicks to reach the floor and to revive green, where they do a co-op zip to the finish to end with a 17-second time. This is what the level looks like in its entirety, and I want you to guess the route that the task takes, and see if you get close to it. If you guessed this route, congratulations, you were correct. The run starts with purple Globox spinning to activate the lever to move the saw blade out of the way, while red Globox sets up a co-op zip for grey Globox and green Globox. They both reach the ring and jump off of it to reach the platform with a kick and enter the next room. Grey Globox walks forward and co-op zips green Globox, who does something completely different here. With a very precise frame perfect ground pound, Globox manages to clip back in for seemingly no reason. If you recall, I said that clipping back in bounds from the sides just kills you, but here green Globox did not die. So what happened? I don't know. I don't have an explanation, but it's worked, so I'm not complaining. After successfully clipping back in bounds, Green Globox does absolutely nothing for around half a second because he has to wait for the other players to come into the room with the same precise ground pound. Green Globox also waited because of Dark Rayman. Since he was the first to enter the room, Dark Rayman, which follows your exact inputs with a little delay and kills you if you touch him, locks onto him and will copy his inputs. If Green Globox immediately went to the platform, Dark Rayman would have been in the way of the other players. If you're wondering how Grey Globox and Purple Globox did not die to Dark Rayman when it clearly looks like they're colliding, that's because they get a bit of invincibility when entering a room, which is also used in the solo world record. Red Globox did not do the same and instead died because he will be useful later. Green Globox spin jumps and back kicks to clip onto the platform he holds up to create a zip tower with Purple Globox, and Grey Globox in the meantime does a max angle walking white boy up to get zipped by Purple Globox. Grey Globox has barely clipped into the wall for a frame that he instantly jumps while holding an angle between left D-pad and left up D-pad. If he held left on D-pad, he would have too much horizontal velocity to the left and he would have accidentally clipped back inside of the same room from the side, which would have killed him. Meanwhile, Green Globox purposefully let himself die to Dark Rayman to be useful later as a ghost. Grey Globox, who is entering the next room from the bottom, does not have any trouble with surviving and ground pounds to gain the last bit of height needed to clear the gap. Since he entered from the bottom, all other players in Ghost will also enter the room like him from the bottom. Grey Globox jumps and ground pounds below the bumper and does a back kick to flake the lever, which moves the saw blade away. Meanwhile, Purple Globox ground pounds and jumps under the bumper like Grey Globox did previously, and in doing so, he revives Red Globox, who also ground pounds under the bumper. While Grey Globox is slowly gliding up the wind stream, Red Globox and Purple Globox don't have to worry about the saw blade since it has already been opened, and they can ground pound again under the invisible bumper, a strat already used in solo runs. Red Globox kicks to land on the floor as early as possible to set up one final co-op zip, and Purple Globox just has to stay above him with a kick, where he gets zipped into the finish with a time of 8.33 seconds. 5-3 was quite something, but the second last run in this video introduces a mechanic that I haven't shown you so far, so let's move on to 1-3 Enchanted Forest. Let's first take a look at the human world record done by Badgie and myself. 1-3's dual world record is honestly pretty underwhelming, due to Badgie having almost a second of delay because of PlayStation SharePlay and the difference in skill at the time. We opted to go for the easiest strats only, which as you can see in the first room basically means that I played the level like in solo until I needed him for a co-op zip. Badgie died at the start to become a ghost and positioned himself at the end of the first room to zip me through the rock into the door, finishing the room in 11 seconds. The second room also doesn't have anything special either, with me doing a flop and a spin into a ground pound to kill the bottom enemy to move the vine out of the way, and Badgie simply jumped into the now open space to complete the room. The last room features both of us doing a walking PR onto the next platform, and one last co-op zip into the finish gave us a final time of 15.98. Before going into this task with Petite, I was not expecting much out of 1-3, seeing how bland the duo record looked, but I had hope that the two additional players and no limits on the difficulty of strats to execute could maybe make the invasion actually good looking, and I think it's safe to say we did a pretty good job at that. The run starts without a zip at the very start, which is quite a surprise for a co-op task. All players do a walking PR into a BY to kill the first enemy, and this is where the magic starts. Purple Globox performs a diagonal co-op zip on the slope, while the three other players do a walking white boy up to reach a higher point than what a jump could have reached, and that's because of the vine. Being in a co-op zip doesn't prevent the player from grabbing it, so they must stay below it to avoid it. This strat actually works because when you kick in front of a vine, the tip of it slightly moves, and the three players barely manage to avoid it. Green Globox jumps and immediately lands again to do a one-frame walking white boy up to kill the toad, which opens the rock. Blue Globox and Red Globox delay their jump as much as possible and barely avoid the rock, but wait a second, what happened to Green Globox and Purple Globox? This is the strategy I was talking about. The first step of this tactic was already done all the way back in my co-op wizardry video multiple times, which consisted of intentionally bubbleizing a player to turn him into a ghost, thus making him be able to move quicker to a destination where they can be revived. But here we went a step further. You see, if If you look at the top left of the screen, green Globox and purple Globox switch spots. How did this happen? If you press the minus button and switch once on any player's controller that isn't player 1, the player gets bubbleized, and if you press it again, the player completely despawns. He will stay in the top left of the screen as an available character that can be brought back into the game as a bubble with the press of any button. Where does he get brought back? Exactly on top of the closest player alive. If you have more than 3 brain cells, you're starting to connect the dots. This can be abused to quickly move a player from anywhere on the map to the same area as the players alive, so he doesn't waste any time moving as a bubble. This strat has been coined as minus minus because, well, the inputs you pressed are minus minus. When you press minus for the first time to bubbleize the players, you have to wait 32 frames before pressing minus again to completely despawn him, and you have to wait an additional 21 frames before an input can be pressed to make him appear again. This means you can make a player travel from anywhere on the map to any player you want in just 53 frames, or 0.88 seconds. So the reason why green Globox and purple Globox switch spots is because green Globox, as player 3, completely despawned, making it so there were only 3 players left in the game, with purple Globox now being player 3. Upon respawning, green Globox is now the 4th player to appear in the field, so he is now player 4. Blue Globox and red Globox revive purple Globox and green Globox as they fall down. To set up another zip tower, purple Globox jumps on top of red Globox and turns around to co-op zip blue Globox and red Globox. They both ground pound for a GP zip, they get released after passing through the rock, while purple Globox and red Globox undergo another instance of minus minus. Green Globox turns around to zip blue Globox straight to the ground. With a small jump, blue Globox manages to stay low enough to not clip inbound from the bottom, and he also manages to stay low enough to clip out of the wall from what is considered the floor by the game. Even though it looks like he went through a wall, that part is the floor because blue Globox can immediately stand on the ground upon clipping. Meanwhile, green Globox also did a minus minus. Blue Globox has a back kick at max speed and revives all 3 bubbleized players, although only 1 was needed. He lands as early as possible to co-op zip the players through the last rock of the room and to the door, finishing the room more than 4.5 seconds ahead of the duo world record. Purple Globox zips blue Globox and green Globox with a GP zip, but at some point, the ground pound animation just suddenly disappears for no apparent reason. So, what happened here? Unlike 5.3, I have an explanation for this. When a GP zip goes through a wall and exits said wall at the exact corner, the ground pound animation disappears, but you keep the falling speed of it, which is 55 meters per second. That's especially useful in the sense that if they had the ground pound animation, it would take a few frames after they touch the ground for them to actually be able to turn around for the player doing the zip and jumping for the player getting zipped. Here, the animation is the same as if they were just falling down, so green Globox can immediately turn around to co-op zip, and blue Globox, once again, does a walking webboard up to get zipped at a specific height, low enough to avoid getting to the vine, and high enough to reach the door with a simple jump. The last room is as straightforward as you could have imagined it. One co-op zip, a kick to kill the toad, another co-op zip, finish in 9.28. A pretty anticlimactic end to the run, but it still was a great co-op invasion run in general. It is now time for the final invasion of this video, which was not even supposed to be here. We tested it in a day as I was writing the script for this video, but it was very worth it. I'm of course talking about the infamous 4-2 Deadly Lights Invaded. Just like 1.3, I had low hopes going into this task, but thanks to genius strat finding, I did not end up disappointed. Whatever you think we did, I can almost guarantee that you're incorrect. With that said, here is 4-2 Invaded. The first 4 seconds of the level are the exact same as the solo task of 2364 by Galaxy. The run starts to differ when all 4 Globox small jump and clip this platform, placing red Globox perfectly so that he can zip all 3 other players with a GP zip, and he releases them inside a wall. If you're wondering why the 3 Globox did not come out of the wall from the top and die, that's because the inside is not completely empty and there are walls and a floor that the player can safely touch. This strat was found by accident. We first intended to zip the players all the way way to the pillar because the flame that would usually obstruct the way hasn't spawned since we never went down the intended path to trigger it. Green Globox zips purple Globox and Luigi Globox out of the visible prison and they jump after passing through this L-shaped pipe. Meanwhile, red Globox also used minus to reappear way quicker than normally possible, and so did green Globox a bit later. Purple, Luigi and red Globox do a walking wipe way up, which also revives green Globox. And this is when stuff get crazy. Luigi Globox does a back kick to clip the pillar before turning right to co-op zip red Globox and purple Globox diagonally above the whole level, out of the camera, completely disappearing from our view. 3 seconds later, purple Globox magically reappears at the top of the pipe. So, what happened in the time span? It's actually not that complicated. Purple Globox and red Globox got released around here, a part that is also empty. Both players then spin to the right, and red Globox zips purple Globox to the right. Purple Globox lands here and just has to spin to squeeze under that platform before continuing with the normal route. Once again, we took the shortest possible path to the goal instead of the intended one. The issue is that the game certainly never intended anyone to go up there, so the camera doesn't follow us, and purple Globox dies from staying out of the screen for too long. That's where green Globox comes into play. Upon getting respawned, green Globox immediately does a walking PR to the right and does a small jump when he lands at the bottom. That jump was all that was needed to move the camera to the right and slightly upwards, and it eventually made the camera refocus on purple Globox, who is player 1. If you tell me that you predicted that we would completely skip this path by going above the level, you're a liar. After the zip, no other Globox and purple Globox is needed for the time being, so all 3 other Globox do a minus to be ready when needed. The rest of the task was pretty easy, as I just had to copy the impact from the solo task onto purple Globox. He does the air kick Y-boy up, still a bit off screen, but the rest is straightforward. Purple Globox does the under enemy strat, the walking PR into back Y-boy small jump, and the frame spin into BY into girth to the chain above. Before settling for the solo task strat, this section underwent a ton of tried strategies, which all failed. We first tried to girth with a low angle to land here and co-op zip to the wall to land at the bottom of the next part and finish from there, but we kept dying to the enemies. Then, I suggested doing the zip way earlier here, but we kept dying to the enemies, so we gave up and did the normal strat. But we kept dying. Purple Globox did a walking PR at the top, like any solo run, and by doing the wall attack, he revived Luigi, green, and red Globox in order. Upon reappearing, red Globox set up a co-op zip as early as he could. All 3 other Globoxes jumped and kicked for a usual zip, and after messing around with the jump timings, we found that the optimal frame for the purple Globox, the one doing the last co-op zip, was the latest possible frame to jump, because it gave the most speed and put us closest to the finish. The jump timing for the Globoxes getting zipped did not matter, as they get to the area where they can get zipped before the purple Globox has time to set up the zip. Luigi Globox landed earlier and jumped and miserably hit the wall as I forgot to make him kick on time, but green Globox kicked early to stay in the air, and he is the one who finished 4-2 Deadly Lights Invaded in 18.58 seconds. Rayman Legends is a 2D platformer game released over 12 years ago. During its existence, players have refined their movement and strategies to push the invasions to their limits and beyond. In the past few years, the arrival of task tools in the community revolutionized what everyone thought the pinnacle of perfection looked like. Seconds were shaved off on 25-second long levels, and the game entered a new era. Additionally, a select group of players have been uniting their skills and strat-finding abilities to completely break the game with co-op, first in dojo rooms and eventually in invasions too, and I believe that co-op runs are criminally underrated. Most people either don't know the crazy work behind them or they simply don't care. In this video, I shed light on 5 brand new, never seen before co-op invasion task runs in an attempt to show people how this children's game about 5 dark evil teensies holds one of the most flowy and technical combination of movements and tricks, making displays of a mix of game knowledge, problem solving and determination like these runs possible. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really want to keep making this type of long form videos, whether it is by dissecting a part of the game or telling a story about a level. If you have a video idea you'd like me to make, please comment it down below or contact me on Discord. Huge thanks and shout out to Petit Fleur once again for making this video possible, and make sure to check his channel in the description. This guy has the biggest brain out of anyone in this community, and he's also insanely underrated for his skill level. With his godlike strat finding, his already enormous amount of skill, and his understanding of task tools, who knows what kind of masterpieces he could produce.